Have you ever given your book to a reader only for them to stop reading after a few pages? You'll want to stick around. Hey guys, Nour here, and today we're talking about how to start your novel, or more specifically, how not to start your novel. This is all about that first chapter, because that chapter can make or break it for you. Even before a reader falls in love with your first chapter, an agent or a publisher or an editor has to. Because wooing over your very first readers will set the trend for the rest of your novel. I mean, if they hate the very first chapter or fall asleep reading it, then they're less likely to continue reading. And it's not like you could follow readers around to tell them that the story picks up. No. Just keep reading a few more pages. I swear, it gets better. It gets better.
Go away.
No.
Go away.
Turn the page, I swear. So, it's really important that you avoid certain pitfalls when you start your novel. Let's dive right in. Number 1, never start the story significantly before the story starts. You know, the main conflict takes place on page 10, but you're out here explaining the shade of the sky, the color of the grass, and the smell of the flowers for 3 pages. I've seen writers do this mistake in several different ways. They describe the characters' looks right off the bat. You know, that cliche scene where the protagonist stares into the mirror and seems to be seeing themselves for the very first time. This is just as boring to start the story as describing the shade of the sky for 3 pages. Another example of this is when the writer opens up with a waking up sequence. They wake up, eat breakfast, brush their teeth, take a dump, take a shower, take another dump, and the reader is left wondering why the story didn't just start after the protagonist got ready. Come on, character. We need you to hurry up so that the story can start. Come on.
Shut up, author.
Oh my god.
4 more pages of getting ready, then we can start the plot.
Look. This is how you lose your reader's interest. Always start with your inciting incident or as close to it as possible. Don't waste your reader's time. Number 2, never introduce too many characters right from the start. Your story can have a long list of characters, but your reader doesn't need to know them all right away. I've actually read a couple of books that pulled off a big cast of characters flawlessly. The Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas introduced 21 competitors in its opening chapters by only naming a few important names that the reader needed to remember and then summarizing the other competitors. For example, Maas wrote, "One by one, the 21 other competitors introduced themselves. There were 6 more seasoned soldiers, then there were the 3 other thieves, and then there were the 2 shackled murderers." This helps keep the story moving without unnecessary filler. The Savior's Champion by the awesome fellow Authortuber Jenna Moresi also does this super well. Jenna broke down a big cast by only introducing a few important names in the beginning, much like what Sarah J. Maas did. Then in later chapters, Jenna concentrated on a few other names. That way, little by little, we got to meet everyone without feeling overwhelmed. The Hunger Games is another flawlessly executed big cast to learn from. Number 3, never info dump just to help the reader picture the world you created right away. Readers aren't stupid. They know that they'll get more and more world building details as they read. They don't even expect to get to know the character fully in the first chapter.
Ooh, Nour. Now that I've read your 3-page syllabus on your world and understand fully how it works, can we please get to the plot?
No. 6 more pages of world building and 3 more exposition dumps. Then we could start.
I haven't even seen a character yet.
So?
Your world sucks.
No, it doesn't. You just don't get it. Because otherwise, they won't have anything to look forward to after that first chapter. So don't go so hard on trying to reveal everything dealing with the story world from the start. A good way to world build in the first chapter is to remember and implement the following. Give only a few crucial details to let the reader know where they are. On Mars, in Florida, in the 1800s, etc. If you must explain the history of the world, keep it to a short paragraph. Sprinkle any other details about the world or its characters throughout the chapter instead of info dumping them all in one page. If something isn't of the utmost importance, you can mention it in later chapters. This is, in my opinion, the smartest way to keep your reader's interest. Number 4, never start your first chapter with a dream. Don't get me wrong, I love a good dream sequence when it's done right. But don't start your story with one. We don't know anything about the protagonist. So why would we care if they have a nightmare or see a prophecy? We don't know their world and we don't value their night dreams yet. Number 5, never be afraid to show your writing style and writing voice from the very first sentence. Now, I'm not saying write flowery, overly fancy sentences. Rather, be true to yourself. Basically, don't be afraid to let your personality show from the start. I've read a few books where the opening is bland, almost like the writer isn't sure of what to do. And that's a shame, because those first sentences become so boring and forgettable. Everyone has their own style and voice, so I can't tell you how to do yours. But one thing I can tell you is to avoid imitating others for the purpose of sounding smart, because it usually has the opposite effect. And number 6, don't fail to end the first chapter with a bang. No, I'm not talking about a bomb going off at the end of chapter 1, silly. Remember the first thing I talked about in this video? A writer's job is to keep the reader interested, and that starts with the first chapter. If you bore your reader in chapter 1, they won't read chapter 2. So something exciting has to occur by the end of the chapter. Inciting incident or not, you have to write something of value to make the reader curious about what's to come. Either reveal something about the protagonist that the protagonist also just discovered, or put them in a life-altering situation, or something of that sort. And if you avoid these pitfalls, you are more likely to keep your readers reading. Let me know in the comments if you've ever made these mistakes and what you did to fix them. Also, let me know if you enjoyed this type of video and leave me feedback in the comments. And remember, Nour for president!